we always get some really interesting stuff to look at for these deep dives.
We do.
But these excerpts you sent over from this English language learning resource,
Okay.
it's all about wedding vocabulary.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty fascinating, I gotta say.
Yeah, at first glance, you might think, oh, this is pretty basic stuff, weddings.
Right.
But when we started going through it, it really struck me that you can learn so much about Anglo-American wedding culture
Yeah.
just by understanding the words, the phrases, the terms that they use.
For sure, and I think that's what we should really focus on today.
Okay.
Kind of our mission for this deep dive
Right.
is to pull out those key vocabulary words,
Okay.
the essential concepts, and maybe even uncover a few little cultural insights just from the language itself.
I like it.
We'll look at the main people involved, of course, bride, groom, all that support crew.
Right.
Then the important places, where does the ceremony happen?
Yeah.
Where's the party?
Where's the party?
And some of the phrases you hear all the time. Even a little bit of grammar
Okay.
that comes up when you talk about getting married.
Right.
And you know what really jumped out at me when I was first looking at this?
What's that?
It was when the marriage license actually gets signed.
Oh, yeah.
I did not expect that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
It kind of makes you think about how everything's kind of intertwined, the
Yeah.
legal stuff and the ceremony.
Yeah,
All kind of happening together.
absolutely. So maybe we should start with the stars of the show.
All right.
The people you can't have a wedding without.
Okay, let's do it.
We got to start with the couple.
Yeah.
We've got the groom.
Groom.
And the source material here is very straightforward.
Okay.
It says it's the man who is getting married.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And then naturally the bride,
Yes.
the woman getting married.
A woman getting married.
They're the reason everyone's there.
We're in the center of it all.
Exactly.
The whole point of the celebration.
But beyond just the happy couple,
Right. There's usually a whole group of people there to support them.
of course.
Let's talk about the bridesmaids.
Okay, the bridesmaids.
What does our source tell us?
Well, it says these are usually the female friends of the bride
Okay.
who stand with her during the ceremony, often her closest friends.
Right, but there's something about their role that I found really interesting.
What's that?
It wasn't just about being there for her emotionally.
Right.
It turns out the bridesmaids, especially the maid of honor and the best man,
Yeah.
they actually have this crucial legal role.
They do.
They have to sign the marriage license
As witnesses.
right there in the church.
During the ceremony.
I always thought that was done like,
Separately.
yeah, in some office somewhere.
Yeah, like a legal office or something.
But it's all part of the ceremony.
It is.
That's pretty fascinating.
It is. It's interesting how they combine it all.
Yeah.
The legal and the personal all at once.
Okay, so we have the bridesmaids.
Yes.
Then there's the flower girl.
Ugh.
The flower girl.
And the way they describe it here is just so sweet.
How do they put it?
A young girl who walks down the aisle scattering flower petals.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's so cute. It's such a classic wedding image.
It is. It's like a symbol of innocence
Yeah.
and new beginnings.
Right.
And it just adds this really light, joyful element
Yeah.
to the whole procession.
To the start of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, we can't forget the ring bearer.
Oh, right. The ring bearer.
Another adorable little kid.
Gotta love the little ones at weddings.
Who carries the rings down the aisle.
Very important job.
Very important job.
They're usually pretty cute too, right?
A source even points that out.
They do.
This is how cute they usually are.
Makes sense.
And it really just adds to the warm, fuzzy feeling of the whole event.
Yeah, they definitely contribute to the overall atmosphere.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the people. Maybe we should shift gears a little and think about the places.
Okay, the locations.
The places where all of this happens.
All right, where do we start?
Well, a really important one is the aisle.
The aisle, okay.
Now, this is one of those words where the spelling can be a bit tricky.
I can see that. A-I-S-L-E.
A-I-S-L-E.
Aisle.
Aisle.
Yeah, that silent S.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like aisle.
It,
So it can be confusing.
for sure, especially for someone learning English.
Absolutely. And to be clear,
Okay.
the aisle is that central walkway
Right.
in a room with rows of seats.
Makes sense.
And in a wedding,
Yeah.
especially in a church,
Uh-huh.
it's the path that everyone walks down.
The bride. The bride.
A wedding party.
Yeah, it's a really powerful image.
Is.
That journey towards marriage.
Yeah, it's very symbolic.
And then after the
After
ceremony,
they set their vows.
after all the serious stuff,
Right.
it's time to celebrate.
Party time.
Which brings us to another key location.
Okay, where's the party?
The reception?
So the reception is the party that happens after the wedding ceremony.
Right. Everyone gets together.
So everyone's there.
Family,
You
friends.
celebrate the happy couple.
Eat, drink, be merry.
Eat, drink.
And there's even this funny little comment in the source material.
Oh, yeah.
It says something like, I hope the food is good at the reception.
I think we've all been to those weddings where
the food wasn't so great.
yeah, you remember the food more than anything else.
Exactly. Good food makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
So we've covered the people, we've looked at the places.
Right.
What about some of those specific phrases and grammar?
Yeah, let's get into some of the language.
Okay.
One phrase that really stands out is, it's about time.
It's about time.
Okay.
What does that actually mean?
So according to the source, it kind of means like finally or at last.
Okay.
You use it when something you've been waiting for finally happens.
Right. They actually give some really good examples here.
Like what?
Well, imagine someone says, dinner's ready.
Dinner's ready. And you're starving.
I'm waiting for hours.
You might say, it's about time. I'm starving.
It's about time I'm starving makes sense.
Or someone tells you, guess what? I finally got a job.
Oh, nice.
And they've been unemployed for ages.
Right.
You'd probably say, it's about time. You've been unemployed for 2 years.
It's about time.
Or you've been on a really long road trip.
Oh, I hate those.
And someone finally says, we're almost there. Just a couple more minutes.
Just a couple more minutes.
You might be so relieved that you say, it's about time. We've been driving for 12 hours.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely see myself saying that.
So it's got that feeling of like relief, but also a little bit of impatience.
Yeah, like it should have happened sooner.
Exactly. Now, there's also this really interesting grammar point they make
Oh, about what?
about the word marry,
Marry.
which apparently a lot of English learners get wrong.
Really?
Yeah, the source makes a big point of saying that when we're talking about the actual act of getting married,
Uh-huh.
you almost always need to say, get married,
Get married.
not just marry.
Okay, interesting.
So, like, they give these examples of how people get it wrong.
Okay, give me an example.
They'll say things like, honey, let's marry.
Honey, let's marry.
Or we married 4 years ago.
We married 4 years ago.
Or when I marry, I want a huge wedding.
I see, they're leaving out the get.
Exactly.
So how do you say it correctly then?
Well, the correct versions would be,
Okay.
honey, let's get married.
Honey, let's get married.
We got married 4 years
We
ago.
got married 4 years ago.
We got married 4 years ago.
And when I get married, I want a huge wedding.
When I get married, I want a huge wedding.
It's all about that get.
It's a small word, but it makes a big difference.
It does. It shows that change from being single to being married.
So it's really important to get that right.
Really important. Okay.
All right, what else do we have?
Well, let's talk about some of the cultural stuff that came up.
Oh, yeah, the cultural insights, those are always fun.
There was this whole conversation about when the marriage license actually gets signed. Oh, yeah. That was interesting.
And it was really eye-opening.
What was it that surprised you?
Well, one of the speakers was really surprised to learn that in Canada.
Okay.
And it seems like in a lot of Anglo-American cultures,
Yeah.
the marriage license is signed during the church ceremony
Right there in the church.
by the best man and maid of honor.
That's wild.
I know.
I always thought it was done separately, like you said before.
Yeah, like a legal thing.
Yeah, like you go to a courthouse or something.
But it's all part of the ceremony,
It is.
which I guess shows how closely tied the religious and legal aspects are.
Yeah, the legal validation happening right in the middle of the religious ceremony.
Yeah, but what was really interesting is
What's that?
the other speaker said that in other places,
Uh-huh.
they actually have a separate civil ceremony.
A whole other ceremony.
Yeah, just for the legal paperwork.
Wow, so they're basically getting married twice.
In a way, yeah.
It's so different from what we're used to.
It is, and it just goes to show how different wedding traditions can be.
Yeah, different cultures, different ways of doing things.
And to really highlight how much variety there is,
Okay.
the source mentions that in India,
India.
weddings can sometimes last for 7 days.
7 days.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a lot of celebrating.
I know, it's not just a one-day thing.
Like a week-long party.
I guess it just goes to show that even though marriage is kind of a universal thing,
Right.
the way people celebrate it
Uh-huh.
and the legal stuff around
The legal framework,
can be completely different.
totally different depending on where you are in the world.
Okay, so to sum it all up,
Right?
we've really gone deep into this wedding vocabulary
We have.
and all these interesting cultural bits and pieces from
Yeah.
this English language learning resource.
Lots of good stuff in there.
We talked about the key players: groom,
Mm-hmm.
brides, bridesmaids,
Mm.
flower girl, ring bearer,
The whole crew.
the whole crew.
Yeah.
The important locations aisle, reception. Those key phrases like It's about time.
And how to use get married correctly.
Get married, not just marry.
Exactly.
Important distinction.
And of course, we couldn't forget that fascinating difference
Yeah.
and how the marriage license is signed
In different culture.
in different cultures.
That was really interesting.
It was.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And you know what?
What's that?
At the end of the source material, they ask a really interesting question.
Oh, what is it?
They say, how are weddings conducted in your country?
In your country?
Yeah. They want you to think about your own traditions
That's a great question.
and compare them to what we've been talking about.
So think about it, listeners.
Yeah, what's similar, what's different?
What are the wedding traditions where you're from?
It really makes you think about how even something like a wedding,
Yeah.
which you might think is pretty much the same everywhere,
A celebration of love.
yeah,
Two people coming together.
can actually be so different
So different.
depending on the culture.
And the legal system.
It's all connected.
And you know what I think the biggest takeaway for me?
It's that.
Even simple vocabulary.
Like wedding vocabulary.
Yeah, can actually teach you so much about a culture,
Absolutely.
about their traditions,
Their values.
even their legal processes.
It's not just about the words themselves.
But it's about what they represent.
It's about the bigger picture.
So next time you hear these wedding words,
Yeah.
think about the cultural context.
The deeper meaning.
It's like there's this whole world hidden within the language.
A world waiting to be explored.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so fascinating.
It is.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive today.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great having you.
Likewise.
We'll catch you next time.
See that.